This is a good drink. I like this place.
I like it too. Mario, let me get another one.
Well, jeez Louise, you guys each had enough.
Hey guys, don't you guys look nice?
Now you fools want to show off.
She's talking to me.
No, dummy. She's talking to me.
You want to see me outside?
I see you now.
They're fighting over me.
Hey, you guys need to break it up. You're wrecking my place. Hey, Sergeant Better Safer, I need your head now.
Welp, I got a few pics of them. I'm out.
You foes knocked each other out. Megan, don't you live?
Like Popeye when it's time.
Looks like we're right on time again. I don't understand why you guys are fighting. I just saw Megan leaving. Was it for that?
It's because she liked my profile picture.
We're connected. Insta-talk.
Sounds like she played both of you. Isn't that right, Kraken? Sergeant, to be safe. Captain Chaos, you guys saved the day again. You guys are the true heroes. Thank you, Mario. We appreciate it. Once again, these two are going back to jail. Part of their punishment is they're going to have to pay for all of these damages. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Welcome to Black and Blue, the podcast that's just for you. We bring solutions to everyday problems. We are here to humanize the badge. By interviewing first responders and discussing their trainings, experiences, and publications. Black and Blue airs weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in.
Let's go start the show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Black and Blue. I am your host. I am Coach Clee. I'm your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker's favorite baker. And this is Black and Blue. This is the podcast where we have interviews with first responders or law enforcement officials who are either rookie, seasoned, or retirees. And we discuss their trainings, experiences, and publications. We go live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time weekly. And today, we kind of had a mishap due to scheduling. That wasn't my fault and wasn't the guest's fault. So I decided to put this together for you for today. Since we were supposed to go live with an interview, we're going to go live with highlights and recaps, okay? And we went through the Rolodex of Black and Blue. And so if you didn't make the cut, I'm sorry, you'll make the next one. But I picked out just a couple moments of individual guests from the birth of this platform till current, and discuss topics that we normally discuss on this platform. All right. But like I said, we go live weekly. We're streaming on 5 different platforms. We're on 2 on YouTube. We're on 2 on, 2 on YouTube, 2 on Facebook, and 1 on LinkedIn, either under Black and Blue, Coach Clee, or Clee Tillman. Make sure you check them out, subscribe to them, hit that like button, and share this information all the way around. We're going to have a lot of fun on this platform. This one is pre-recorded, which I don't normally do. So therefore, we're going to get right to all of it and make sure we have fun while we're doing it. This platform is sponsored by One Way Publishing. One Way Publishing is also where if you want to do a voiceover for Sergeant Be Safe, they sponsor Sergeant Be Safe. Email them, hit the website, let them know. If you want to be a guest on the show, make sure you hit that website and fill out the paperwork, and you too can be a guest on the show as well, all right? But we got a nice lineup. October's been a great month for us. We've had a good lineup. We still have more to come, okay? And because of the rescheduling, we were supposed to go live with Ernie Stevens today, and that's not going to happen. We're going to go live with him next week, so tune in to that. It's going to be a back-to-back header, a double header all next week. And then also, I will be going out of town. I'll be traveling to Michael Laidler's conference. So we're actually going to have a snippet of him. So be on the lookout for that. But so far, we've had Travis Yates, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Travis Yates, in his book, The Courageous Police Leader. Can you see that? Yes, and we had him on the show. Got my autographed copy. You guys make sure you guys get yours. We've also had Scott Medlin on the show, 101 Health Tips for Police Officers, in his book, and we'll feature these books later in the month as well, like I normally do. And then up and coming, we have Chad Michael Bruckner in his book, The Holy Trinity of Success in Healthy Police Organizations. Right now, currently still in the middle of that one. And not to forget, like I said, Ernie Stevens, his book that he did with Nick Rogerio. Let me get this up here on the screen. And here it is. And take a look at that. Mental Health and De-Escalation, a guide for law enforcement professionals. And so we had and will be having those gentlemen on the show for Black and Blue. And it's been a tremendous experience getting to know them, getting to see their work and seeing the work that they're doing out here. But let's take a leap back. We're going to jump right back from some of the early ones. So don't make fun of the background, but some of the early individuals who've been on the show for Black and Blue up until currently. And first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're going to bring Dr. Francia Donier to the stage and her discussion on giving back. Stand by. All right, and we are here with Dr. Francia Donier and Giving Back. Here she is. So articulation is a beautiful thing. When you start this career, you may not be as articulate, and you kind of get frustrated with the person who's already frustrated. It's like two bulls coming at each other. But once you learn how to, for lack of a better term, start to corral the bull, and you can get him back in the stable, and you can articulate yourself in a situation a lot better, and it makes a smoother transition on both sides.
Exactly. And I would like to point out that women happen to be good communicators, which is why we need more women in law enforcement, because women have that gift. I would say, of course I'm biased because I'm a woman in law enforcement, and I feel that is valuable and that's something women can do. But there are studies that do show that, women are more empathetic, and they're able to listen and kind of understand perspectives in a way that's unique. So absolutely, I think communication is at the core of everything, right? And there's all types of communications and communication skills that you need, from writing a report to how you talk to people to listening, right? And all that goes with communicating.
Absolutely. And you also mentioned on leadership skills. Leadership skills, is that a course that you taught as you were adjunct professor at any of the local colleges?
Yeah, so I teach organizational leadership in a project management course, and I also teach leadership theory and leadership applications and strategic planning for criminal justice professors. For criminal justice professionals. So, leadership is highly needed, and it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone in a law enforcement position should be in a leadership position, but understanding how leadership works, I think, is beneficial. So, it can help with career progression, of course, to get people where they should be, but it's also something that's worthy of just having a good tool in your toolbox.
Exactly. And so I know, so not only are you a professor, I know you've actually wrote some policies, done some research on policies, and speak a couple languages. What all have you brought to the table throughout the course of your career that you would like to impart with us?
Oh boy, I would say a lot. I'm not very shy about speaking my mind, and I can't say that it's all been positive in terms of me expressing what I felt was right and what needed to be done. I've been persistent in my endeavors to try to make change through policy, right, and through research and my education. So those are things that people can't take away from me. And even though sometimes I felt minimized, and sometimes like I was not heard, or like concerns that I brought up weren't really addressed, I continued on. And I thought about all those people that I feel like I've helped over the years in being a police officer, and they're the reason why I continued on. Because if it wasn't for someone like me, that they could relate to, I wouldn't. It wouldn't have made me keep going, right? It was about helping those people that couldn't help themselves and being that voice for those that couldn't speak up for themselves. So I felt, of course, again, I'm biased. I feel like I brought a lot to the table, and I continue to do so, every day. One thing that I ask folks that I work with is, what can I do to make your life easier as a police officer? What can I do to help improve things so it's better, whether that's changing.
And there's a clip of that. Make sure you guys check out the channel Black and Blue for the full video. It's also on Spotify. That's one of the earlier ones. That's someone, individual who I used to work with, has gone off and done other things in other states and climbed the ranks through there, and having a tremendous career. So make sure you guys follow up. But we're going to move on to another New York City police officer, another administrator. He discusses, at that time, he was the president of the New York chapter of Noble, the national organization of Black law enforcement executives. I almost messed that up there. And his name's Ramel Lee. And he gave a tremendous performance here on the show, gave good information. And here is his clip now. That we had back then, I was able to at least navigate myself through and kind of feel my way through until I became a little bit more seasoned.
No, yeah, definitely.
So you're the president of Noble. How long did you say you were the president of Noble?
The president of New York chapter. I don't want to ruffle the national chapter, the national
right.
president's feathers.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Well, I got sworn in January 2021. So okay. I've been doing it almost a year and a half now.
Okay. How gratifying is that for you, at least to actually be a part of an organization where you get to help out other officers?
Well, when I first joined Noble and I went to my first chapter meeting, I walked in the room and I seen all these Black law enforcement executives. It was a room full. I didn't even know there were that many in the city, let alone part of like one organization. And I fell in love with the mission immediately. Noble prides itself on being the conscience of law enforcement, and their motto is justice by action.
Okay.
And their mission is to ensure procedural justice throughout all communities. And being a person of color and in law enforcement, you see how policy sometimes leads to communities of color not being policed the same. And Noble's mission is to change that, to make sure everyone's given the same respect regardless of zip code. So yeah, I fell in love with the mission right away. And for, police leadership throughout New York to look at me and make me the steward of the chapter for the time being that I am, I'm just honored. Just there's nothing more I can say. It's an honor to think that they would think that highly of me. So I just feel honored. I take me being the steward of the chapter very seriously. It's part activism as far as fulfilling our mission, but it's also running an organization. There's constitution, bylaws, finances, or fundraising, all those things also involved. So it's definitely a full plate, but I'm enjoying the meal.
I like that. Good. So Noble, like you stated before, stands for National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. How would a person who knows nothing about Noble at all, they want to apply to gain access into the organization itself?
Well, Noble, it's a national organization with local chapters. So national, and I definitely know New York, but I can assure you almost all chapters have a website. You can go on the national website, which is noblenatl.org, and you can find like your local chapter, but it gives you a history of the organization. It also gives you options to join. You don't have to be a Black law enforcement executive to join Noble. You can be of any ethnicity to join. That's number one. Just gotta, believe in the mission. You don't have to be an executive. We have what we call associate members, people who are just under the executive level that are looking to either support the executives in their mission or looking to one day become an executive themselves. And there's also the supporting member level where you don't have to be in law enforcement at all. And some chapters have collegiate chapters. So for people that are in college that are studying in the field of criminal justice, they can also join. So there's room for everyone. And if you don't want to do anything, you can always be a sponsor and help us out.
Gotcha. Yes, that it does help the boat and get down the stream a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and there you have that. That was an interesting interview. I got to actually meet him. He invited me up to New York. I got to sit down at a nice restaurant, and we got to have a face-to-face and a great conversation before that interview took place. So make sure you guys check out that interview. Make sure if you're interested in Noble, reach out, especially if you're in the New York area, or if you just have any questions, watch the full interview, check him out. Next, we're going to move on to Bert Walker. Bert Walker, I actually met him on a fishing trip, and it was with my family, deep sea fishing. And we didn't even know that we were in the same field. We didn't know that we were both in law enforcement until after the trip was over. And I started talking to my uncle. Then I reached out to him, and then we struck up a conversation. And he provided a great perspective on the issues that he discussed during his interview. And here's a clip of it now.
Where Charlotte is in Mecklenburg, we're the richest counties. And starting out, you're gonna make about $45,000 a year.
Okay.
So at $4.59 a gallon, and about $1,800 a month for rent for an apartment that's the size of this cell phone, how many people are you going to get to come do that and work a 12-hour rotating shift? We work 4 on, 4 off, rotating shift, 2 weeks of days, 2 weeks of nights, holidays, Christmas, all the days. And right now we don't have no money for budget, so guess what you're gonna get paid for? No holidays, none of that stuff. You don't get no money for that. You just showed up and everybody says thank you.
Yep.
So how do I sell that to somebody in North Carolina is different how I sell it for you. Our retirement is 30 years. What's your retirement, Clay?
25.
25 years. And again, I got to sell that to somebody that you got to be here for 30 years with leave time. If you don't take leave, you got sick time, you probably get here in 28, 27, sell it back and you'll be good. But I don't know how to sell that to somebody if they believe solely what people are saying negatively about law enforcement. And if I got to sell them that, are there cops that need to go?
Yeah.
Yep. There's not a profession on the planet that somebody don't need to go. There's not a profession. There's teachers, priests. We've seen it all, right? It doesn't matter what profession you are. As they told us in the Marine Corps, 10% ain't worth nothing. They always call them the 10%ers. 10% ain't worth nothing. And you're going to have police officers that blacken the eye of everybody's. So how do I sell to a young black man that's 21, 22 that he can change what happened in Minneapolis? You can not guarantee it, but you can do your best and put your soul on the line that mess won't happen again. How do I tell them that in a environment where you usually have a bunch of people around? It's kind of hard. But if I sit down one-to-one with you, I'll be real with you. And what I've seen people do, I've seen dirty cops, and I've seen the thin blue line be nothing but the farce that I know it is. You know it, and I know it, Cleve. That's a farce. We're humans that have a job. We're humans that have a job, and we're supposed to be making it better for everybody. And if I could sell it to them that as a young black man, you can make it better for your community, but then everybody's community, because you got to deal with white people, Asian people, Hispanic people that ain't from here, and gay, trans, whatever. So you're going to have to be universal in your thinking, number one. There is no like way heavy over here. You can disagree with somebody's sexuality, but you're going to have to still give them the same service.
Give them fair treatment. Yep.
Fair treatment. Believe. One, you have to go in and tell them the truth of what the job is. One with you, I'll be real with you. And what I've seen people do, I've seen dirty cops, and I've seen the thin blue line be nothing but the farce that I know it is. You know it, and I know it, Cleve. That's a farce. We're humans that have a job. We're humans that have a job, and we're supposed to be making it better. I'm explaining to them that justice has to be universal still when you come here, even if you don't like them. They're white and you don't like them, and they didn't break the law. You can't stay there and hold the heavy hand on them because they called you some names.
Let me interject here. I got a couple comments and a couple questions up here. Shout out to Mayor Green. Thanks for tuning in.
Ain't got nothing to do with law enforcement, just me and you. Just tell me, okay, let me talk to so-and-so. I'm gonna get these counselors to your house. So I think that's it too.
And being effective. He just made a comment now. Mayor Green just made a comment. Communication breaks down barriers and helps people get through their implicit biases. Communication is the key. I remember one of my veteran officers that since retired on, he said something to me as a younger officer when I was with the former department, actually, that I didn't understand at the time, but I grew to understand, which is, he said, when you become a police officer, you become a used car salesman. You know, you got to make the situation sound better than what it is. Not that you're trying to sell somebody a clunker, because a car could be in decent shape, but it's not a brand new car, but you still got to get it off the lot. Basically, he said, you got to learn how to talk to people. And once you learn how to talk to people and you can find out how to get them in their head and emotionally, that's where you make the difference. And I've learned through communication is the key. I mean, you wanted to be Batman too. You wanted to beat him out. You wanted to arrest everybody. Then you found out, listen, you can, if I can get through to you and have a conversation, that's way more, that's generationally effective.
Yes. And like Mr. Green was saying, if everybody could accept that you got some kind of bias, if you have a bias, you do, and accept it. Know that when you go to that certain call, that it's in here. It may not come out initially, but somewhere in there, it does affect you. It does affect you, and you have to sit there and communicate with each other and yourself. You got to be truthful with yourself on how you looked at situations and seeing how you're going to deal with it. And like you said, once you get in there and you realize that, no, I don't care what anybody's done criminally. They're still humans. And because people, I don't know, Cleve, if you've had people ask, how do you sit there and talk to a rapist? He sat there and he did this to a child. It's like, he's still a man. I mean, I know what you want to call him. You want to call him a monster and all this, but he's not. He's a human being, did something monstrous. So I still got to sit down and interview him. I still got to sit down and talk to him like he's a man with Fourth Amendment rights. Now, people don't like that. At times, it's like, I still got to sit down there and understand he or she has rights no matter what they did to whoever. Even our school shootings, if the knucklehead that did what he did lived, you still got to sit there and talk to him with his rights, thinking about mental health, thinking about Fourth Amendment, thinking about Fifth Amendment, thinking about Sixth Amendment. You got to sit there and put all their Eighth Amendment. You're throwing all these things in there as you speak to them, and you can't focus on the crime because you start getting biased. And if you got children and you arrest a child molester, I got a child, you got children, you arrest a child molester, you have to do this.
Yeah. It's not easy, but it's necessary. Yeah.
It's necessary.
Yep. And that was an interview with Burt Walker. Like I said, I met him on a fishing trip, and he talked about biasness and recruitment in his video, and he skipped ahead a couple times and kind of went ahead, but that's okay. Make sure you check out the full video on the platform Black and Blue, or the clip as well. He had a great interview as well. And I'm moving on to a guy who I actually had the pleasure of working with, but he worked for a different department. He's now retired. He's doing something else. He's living the dream. There is life after retirement. But Darren Cotton, and he was also with EAP. He's a peer assistance personnel, and he did a lot of great things. And when he came on the platform, he dropped a lot of jewels and nuggets too. And here's when he was on here, he talked about National Night Out. He talked about the academy, how it was and how it is then, how it was and how it is now. Sorry. And he also talks about recruitment and things that are hindrance for recruitments for agencies, and things that he believes can make positive changes. And I know a lot of people who are on here know you, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was born and raised in North Carolina. I went to a little small town called Goldston, right in the central part of the state. Right after high school, I went into the Air Force, served 7 years in the Air Force. I was stationed out in Texas, went to spend a year in Korea, and then I finished up my last 4 years at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida. And in the Air Force, I was a security policeman, and I got out and went back home to Sanford and worked there for 4 years. Ended up on the community policing unit there. My last couple of years there, which I enjoyed. I love being out in the community, especially being with the kids, talking trash, playing ball with them, trying to, I split a couple of pair of pants out there with the kids trying to do some moves. And then I ended up here at Derry Township. I've been blessed 24 years here, and about another year to go, and then hopefully I'm going to sail off into the sunset and retire.
There you go. That sounds like
Sanford, for instance, I was on the community policing unit there. And what we did there was each neighborhood had their own, so that you actually get to know your neighbors. Because you know as well as I do, I've gone to calls before, someone has an open door, and you go to the neighbor like, hey, what's your neighbor's name? You know where they work? And they're like, I don't know nothing about them. Like, how can you live next door to somebody and not know them? So that's part of what National Night is. Get out, know your community, you get to learn the police officers. A lot of police officers will be there. Politicians are always going to be, especially if it's an election year, politicians are going to be there. But it's mainly community coming together, everybody getting to know each other, know what resources are there and available for you.
Yep, absolutely. Each department does it differently. I think all the main local departments, at least in this area, have something going on at various locations within their jurisdiction. I know it's a national thing.
Down at Sanford, I got on it eventually after I worked a couple of years in patrol. I think we should definitely be out in the community more. And also at that time when I came on the job, and even up probably to the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of departments would send you through the academy if you didn't have Act 120 or your certification. I know myself, 25 years old, had twins, married. If they would have said, hey, you got to go to the academy. Back then, the academy was only like 2.5 months. If they would have said, hey, you got to quit work and go to the academy and then come back and you got a job, I couldn't afford it. And then in the early 2000s, they went to where a lot of departments were requiring at least have a 2-year degree and some a 4-year degree. we missed out on a whole lot of qualified people because they were in situations like me. I had kids young, got married young, had kids young. I couldn't afford it. If I wasn't given that opportunity, I wouldn't be where I'm at now.
Right.
So I think, so they went to that stage and then they started doing the old, well, you got to have your 120 or we're not even going to look at you.
Yeah. That's around the time I came through.
It's one of those where life happens. Mm-hmm. And, you know, everyone isn't born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you see people that show interest in being law. Hey, I'd love to get into it, but I can't afford it. This or whatever. And then right now, everybody is just hurting for manpower.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
Like social media and the media has hurt a lot of professions. I'm not just going to say law enforcement. Mm-hmm. They've hurt a lot of professions. Mm-hmm. You know, because anybody can get behind a keyboard and type anything. Mm-hmm. Instead of, face to face, you can respond. You can tell the inflection in their voice if they're being spiteful and mean about it, or they just kind of like voicing a concern. I think we miss a lot of that face-to-face time. And I definitely have noticed a difference in the people that are coming on the job now. A lot of them don't have the skills that we had. And I always tell everyone, I hate to sound like my parents, because, when you were young, they were like, look, you guys are nothing like we had. We had to walk uphill both ways, barefoot in the snow to school every day.
Kevin Holland here with... need to get out and build relationship with middle school and high schools, get them interested in our profession at an early age. Also needing college credit does hurt recruiting numbers. Yes, it does.
Yeah, it definitely does. Like I said, and I think a lot of departments are starting to back away from that now. Mm-hmm. The college requirement, I think they're starting to back away. And like you said, definitely, getting in, our school resource officers, we have one, it's a good one. We've, and the previous and the one we retired, they've always been very interactive with the students as well. And that plays a big part. Sometimes there was an old saying years ago, you just kind of throw somebody into school to someone that ain't worth being out on the street anymore, to kind of hide them, but I think knowing that the departments, at least here in Central Pennsylvania, a lot of the ones that are in the schools are very qualified and they're interactive with the kids. Mm-hmm. And it may change some of their minds to get into law enforcement. I'm not the greatest thing ever. I'm not here to say that. But sometimes when you can relate to people and provide resources for people, that's how I want to make a difference in everyone's life. Everyone I come in contact with them, whether it's just a greeting, hello, how you doing today? You never know what someone's going through every day. A simple hello, have a nice day, holding the door for somebody, that can make someone's day.
Well, be a game changer. Yeah.
So, I every day I try to do something productive and be nice to people. Mm-hmm. Try to. I'll put it like that.
Well, yeah, got to make the attempt. There it is. Positive words from Darren Cotton. Make sure you guys check that out. Had a lot of fun interviewing him, and he watches and maintains the show often. But right now, we're going to cut ahead, starting to be safe to a commercial here. So I hope you enjoy it. Stand by.
Captain Chaos, did you mess up another report again?
Sorry, Sergeant Be Safe. I'll try to be more, careful.
What in the world was that? Whoa, look out the window, Captain Chaos. There's a real live superhero.
We have to meet them, Sergeant Be Safe. Let's go.
There's Super Crime Buster to the rescue.
Hey, there's Super Crime Buster! Woohoo!
Hey, you're the greatest, Super Crime Buster.
Yeah, we know Super Crime Buster's out there. We're actually on the way, but we keep getting phone calls. Excuse me, Super Crime Buster. I'm Sergeant Be Safe, and this is my partner, Captain Chaos. We'd like to thank you for your incredible bravery.
Yeah, you're amazing. We're big fans.
Wait, you are the police officers, but not the superheroes?
No, we're just ordinary officers doing our duty.
But we may not have superpowers, but we're heroes in our own way.
You're right! The heroes don't always wear capes or possess superhuman abilities. It's the everyday heroes like you who make a difference.
Thank you, Super Crime Buster, for that reminder. You are absolutely 100% correct. To all the first responders and law enforcement officers, take it from me and Captain Chaos. We applaud you. We know you do a thankless job and are highly needed. You are a superhero in your own right. Keep up the good work in these perilous times because you are needed. Wouldn't you agree, Kraken? And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And we are back. I hope you enjoyed that cartoon by Sergeant Be Safe. Those first set of videos were in the early stages of Black and Blue. You can kind of see, my head's big. I'm getting picture quality is not the greatest, but the interviews are dynamic, and the information shared is something that you want to take a hold of. These next set of videos are kind of in the middle of the transitioning point of Black and Blue. The background changes a little bit, but it's not this background that you see right here. But we have some exciting individuals. One is Teddy Ames. He was now a retired Philly cop he's been in movies, he's been on commercials, you probably heard him on cartoons, so many different things. We're gonna sample his electrifying interview. He's a lot of fun to interview. Stand by. Here's his sample now.
Party of the police officers countrywide, I would imagine. As far as the initial driving force, you just want to be helpful.
Right.
You see what goes on and you see it in different realms. First, you see it on your block, then you see it in your community, then you see it in your city, and then you see it, beyond that. And you think to yourself, if this is your calling, you think, I'd like to be able to do something to kind of help stop this or help save that, whatever it is that's your particular motivation. But in my particular case, it was just that I felt like I just wanted to be a better example than some of the interactions that I had. And I don't want to paint the picture that they were all bad, because I ran into really, really good cops before I was on the job, as a young teenager and in my early 20s. But of course, there was, just like anything else, there's good experiences and bad experiences. But my thought was, if I'm able to do this job, I'd like to do it in a fashion where people come away from the interaction with me somewhat positive, somewhat content with the information they got, or whatever the engagement entailed.
Right.
First of all, I ain't gonna let you sit here and get me in trouble. Talk about which one is my favorite.
I'm sorry. That's all of them are the same. I get it.
I love all of those projects equally. So but they really, truly, honestly have all been, in their own way, so fulfilling. The short films, as much as the full feature films, the commercial work, as much as plays, like they have all been, because I've been, again, just like the police career, I've been blessed to just have been around some of the most phenomenal people, because that's what makes it. It's about how good the core of people that you happen to find yourself surrounded by are, that makes or breaks your experience and how things go for you and how long you stay in whatever occupation it is. I've been blessed, man. All of them have been great.
We like to reward our own for such dedication and game-changing arrests. Gangs like these jeopardize the very fabric of the American dream. We absolutely cannot allow our citizens to work hard to make a living just to have it all swindled away from them. Sams, step up, sir. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you our esteemed Mayor Brown.
Yep. So there you have it. That's Teddy Ames right there. Teddy Ames, he, like I said, he's a retired Philly cop. Then I actually got to meet him in person. I got to drive down to King of Prussia during that movie that was just featured, Money Lovers, which he was in. He is a retired cop, but he's actually playing a lieutenant in the movie, and his acting skills are wonderful. I got to meet him face to face, got to go down to the premiere and see the movie on the big screen. It was a lot of fun to do that. So make sure you check him out. Make sure you check his movies out. He's still around, out and about, and doing his thing. But ladies and gentlemen, we're still going to shift to another Philly sheriff, who is fitness is his thing. He likes running. And he found a group while he was in Atlanta that do Black Men Run. And he's been doing that since, I believe, 2015 or so. And he explains his story here. He talks about that. Make sure that I got everything. I don't want to skip everything. Yes, George Morse right here, jumping on right now.
Run could be beneficial to men who are coming in that are just novice, recreational runners, that are, just want to get out there and take care of their health, take control of their health, mentally and physically, and just having that type of fellowship and brotherhood that you can connect with, that can motivate you and inspire you to continue to push yourself. Even if you come, you start walking by yourself and it get to the point where you can even jog a mile and then work yourself up to jogging 3 miles and start joining up to the Black Men Run group runs that they host in different cities across the nation. And you'll see yourself one day registering for a race one day, and you'll be like, wow, I can't believe I did a 5 mile run, or I did a 6 mile run, or 8 to 10 mile run. It just helps benefit you mentally and physically. And that's what we're here for. Black Men Run was formed. Our founders are in Atlanta. That's where our mother chapter is at. Our founders are Jason Russell and Edward Walton. They saw a need for Black men to be represented in this sport and in this space. Definitely to defy the stereotypes as far as the diseases that are affecting Black men across this nation, such as heart disease, cardiovascular disease, and hypertension. So those are our 3 health issues that we're out here to counter and combat and eradicate for Black men.
Gotcha. And I kind of cut you off a little bit. Hold your medal up again and explain exactly what that is and how you got that.
Okay, so this medal right here that I'm holding up, this was Black Men Run's national meetup this year, was the Detroit Free Press Marathon. Okay. This was hosted in the second week of October, and I'm actually rocking the swag shirt that came with that half marathon. That was our national meetup, and Black Men Run, we host a national meetup every year, and it's in a different city across the United States. This year it was in Detroit. It was hosted by our Black Men Run Detroit chapter and our SLT members. They did a great job hosting us. I've never been to Detroit. This marathon was the Free Press Marathon, and it took us out of the beautiful city of Detroit, Motown, and we took it into Windsor, Canada, and we ran over a bridge out of Detroit into Canada and came back in the sights, and it was beautiful. It's a great experience, and I'm looking forward to next year. Black Men Run is going to be celebrating our 10th year. Black Men Run actually started in July of 2013. We'll be celebrating next fall our 10th year anniversary, and I think our 10th year anniversary destination race is going to be in Atlanta. I don't have all the details yet, but when I get the details, I can share them with you. You probably can share them on your platform if you want.
Absolutely, I got you. So tell us how you got involved with Black Men Run.
I got involved with Black Men Run back in 2015. So there was a gentleman who was like a alumni from my school, who was like someone who would come through and help me out sometimes. And I remember I was in Atlanta for one of my best friend's bachelor parties, and I saw Black Men Run. I was at a Chicken and Waffles. I saw Black Men Run, the guys from Philly, from my city, going to, I think the race they was down in Atlanta for was the Publix. It was like in March 2015. And I said, yo, when I get back to Philly, I'm gonna hook up with y'all brothers, because that right there was it for me. I said, oh, they run out of town. I said, yo, when I get back, I'm gonna link up with y'all. That was end of March. When I came back to Philly, it was mid-April. I showed up to a group run, and I remember telling the captain at that time, yo, man, listen, I ain't never run more than 3 miles. I seen all these brothers out here running. I said, look, don't leave me. And I made it through the whole 5 mile group running. I remember Cap and the rest of the old heads that was out there said, hey, George, they said, what a young guy who said don't leave? And they was like, you was up front the whole time. I was like, I just worried about getting left. I ain't want to get left. So that was my experience. That right there, the brotherhood, nobody leaving nobody. And I seen that, doing something positive and powerful. I said, man, this is it. I'm sticking with this. And that's where I'm at now.
So that's George Morris. Make sure you guys check him out. He's been on podcasts, tearing it up right now. He's been on a few podcasts locally, doing his thing, and he's continuing to climb and getting his message out there. But we're going to transition and move on. Most of you guys remember Brandon Griffith out there in Arizona on the West Coast, he's had a very traumatic / inspiring story, and he continues to let his story inspire others and to seek individuals who are law enforcement, first responder, or everyone to go seek medical, get checked up, get your heart checked up for different things. He explains so many different reasons why you can hit cardiac arrest or heart failure. So many different. He's the guy for that. He knows what's important, what's not. He can explain all that, and he's on a crusade and a mission to bring awareness out there because he suffered almost a tragic story that actually turned him around to be resilient and get his job back and educate. And I'm going to bring him to the stage now. Here's his video clip.
Thought that I would drop dead from cardiac arrest. And, I wish I could tell you that I was in a foot pursuit or doing something cool or, on the football field getting hit. But I was like 4 out of 5 cases. I was in my home. I was in my den reading a book. My wife was on the computer. I put the book down. I said, hey, I'm going to take the dog out. I took 2 steps towards my door, and it was just, you ever had someone jump out and scare you? When your heart skips that beat, kind of like that fluttering. Imagine that happening, but you can't recover from it. It's this weird flutter in your chest, and immediately I couldn't breathe. Even though I collapsed within about 1.5 seconds, I experienced time distortion. Those that have been through critical stress incidents know what I'm talking about. Everything slowed way down, and I remember going, something's not right. And I remember bearing down and having my jugular veins start to distend. My face started turning the darkest purple my wife had ever seen. I'm trying to do combat breathing like we're taught to slow down my respirations, but when you're in cardiac arrest, there's no blood being pumped to your brain or anywhere else. Your lungs physically cannot expand with oxygen. So I started convulsing and started doing agonal breathing, trying to force myself to breathe. So my wife turns around, recognizes this is an emergency immediately, calls 911. I fall back into my bookshelf, breaking every tear on the way down. Wow. She tries to brace me and catch me, right? My wife is about 5'3", I'm 6'4", so I go right over her, put my head through the wall. I land on my hands and my knees, and I'm looking out in my hallway, and I'm starting to get tunnel vision. But it's not like what you experience in the field when your adrenaline starts pumping and it's hard to focus on certain things. There's a lot going on. It's not like that. It's this dark purple. I'm starting to see shapes and silhouettes, and things are fluttering out on me, right? Everything's closing in. In that moment, man, I can't tell you the feeling of helplessness. In that moment, here I am, a cop, I'm an EMT, I've saved I don't know how many lives, I've done CPR, I've done tourniquet application. There is nothing I can do in this moment to save my own life. And that's when I knew that I was a goner, man. And that's when I collapsed. I dropped dead to my floor right there. My wife rolled me on my back. She started doing CPR on me. She worked on me for 4.5 minutes, and she wasn't getting the depth she wanted. And she's a true genius. I mean, she put my feet up on the couch, so all the oxygenated blood on my legs would go down on my core. I can't get ER docs to think like that. The fact that she had that presence of mind in that moment still blows me away. But she worked on me for about 4.5 minutes. The first responder was obviously a cop. She had to stop what she's doing, go open the door, let him in. This officer was not equipped with an AED like most departments around our country, but he jumped on my chest and did an amazing job. He gave it everything he had. He worked on me until fire and EMS got there around the 9.5 minute mark. They go into my den. They had to get more room to work on me, so they dragged my body in the living room where they got more room to work. They're IO drilling me. They're dropping OPAs in my mouth. They're doing all this stuff. I was dead for like 16 minutes and 48 seconds before they finally they were able to resuscitate me. Wow. And when I was brought back, man, that pain is something that it's hard to describe to those who haven't been through it. Your arms and your legs, when you fall asleep on me, get those pins and needles feeling. Imagine that times 1,000. Like it hurts everywhere. My chest had been compressed in. I got stress fractures. There's blood in my mouth from when they put the OPA in. I can taste that. When you get tased, you have that metallic taste in your mouth and those weird tingles afterwards. But the worst of it was my head, man. With every single heartbeat, I'm getting these white flashes in my head. It feels like someone's taking a sledgehammer to the top of my head. And at that moment, I sat up. I started pushing the firefighters off me. My wife grabbed me by the face and told me, don't leave me. I said I won't, before I collapsed backwards. In that moment, from that moment on, I don't remember anything almost nothing for the next 5 days, because my brain was, recovering from oxygen deprivation. But I do remember feeling the sway of the gurney, and I could hear the firefighters walking on the rocks in my front yard. I mean, according to the crew, they said I was in good spirits. I was in the back of the ambulance calling them hose draggers and having a good old time. So I'm still friends with the guys this day, but they take me to the hospital and they start running all these tests on me, and I am in and out of consciousness. I'm waking up, my wife's there, I got some guys from my squad, and I'm passing back out. And they're telling me I died and came back. I'm passing back out. They're running every test possible, and they're looking at my heart, cardiac MRIs and stress tests. I mean, they broke my blood down to chromosomic levels, looking for genetic mutations, and there was no diagnosis. Nothing wrong with my heart, healthier than a horse. And that's when I started realizing the magnitude of what cardiac arrest is, how many young people die every day, young athletic males being at the highest risk. And for me, they had no diagnosis for it. It was like, hey, from the time you're in the womb to the day you die, your heart sends electrical impulses. It takes one electrical misfire for you to drop dead, just like a brain aneurysm or something else. It can happen in a literal heartbeat. So now I'm 26 years old. I lost my spot on my SWAT team. Overnight, I don't know if I have a job. I got labeled as damaged goods. It's like, hey, we can't have this cop out here with a defibrillator. Obviously, my command staff didn't know anything about cardiac arrest. They all thought I had a heart attack or something. And I had to explain there's differences in all of this. And now that I have this device implanted in my chest and I'm on medication, I'm safer than any other cop out there. First responders are at a 70% higher risk of heart disease than the general population. And we are 25 times more likely to die from heart disease than a violent encounter with a suspect. We got 20-year less life expectancy than the people we serve. So I now had to fight to keep my job. I had to fight and go toe-to-toe with the governing board. We had to go to risk management. Thank God Chief Mark Mann had my back. He refused to let them cast me aside. And I brought in our state medical director and researchers, and I fought to go back. And as far as I know, I'm one of the only cops, if not the only cop, to return to full active duty with an implanted defibrillator in my chest. And that
Such an amazing story, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Make sure you guys check that out. Make sure you check his website out, Griffith Blue Heart, for more information. If you're looking for defibrillators, if you're looking for, not defibrillator, AEDs for your office, AEDs for the car, or just more education. He puts on trainings. He has scenarios on the website. Make sure you guys check that out. It's very, very important, very, very educational. We're going to move on to Dr. Kareem Paranda now. Some of you may remember his electrifying story as well. He wrote a book. It describes his upbringing in New York, how very trauma-filled that it was. Then he became a police officer to do the right thing. And then later, as you hear in the story, he gets indicted for a use of force incident, which it was a very hard ordeal for him to have to go through. And then he transitioned to a counselor, a first responder counselor, and that's what he does now. Make sure you guys check him out. But we're going to hear part of his story now. His interview was a lot of fun as well. I'm working with two other individuals that were, one has since passed on, but he wanted to be known as for lack of a better term, a kicker, a blankety blank kicker. That's very celebrated and admired. I'm pretty sure he wanted to do his job well and effectively, but working with those individuals, in your book, you explain how you get called to a certain nightclub in the area, which it turns out to be rowdy. I can't remember if you may have known the person from dealing with them beforehand or dealt with them that night, but things got a little aggressively physical that night in the club where they'd taken him into custody. Of course, I think punches or things were thrown, and then getting him into custody, and come to find out however long after that, you're being served with papers on being basically arrested for, correct me if I'm wrong, abuse or something on the job or something like that. Can you explain that a little bit? I know I'm probably chopping it up.
No, you're good. Yeah, I know exactly. So what happened was, it's kind of interesting because this is why the situation in Memphis was so triggering to me, because that summer, it was 2009, those same guys you were talking about, and several other officers were assigned to a zero tolerance task force that was trying to get ahead of the crime sprees that usually uptick in the summertime. And so it was in that season, and it was in that summertime season that I had several uses of forces that throughout that assignment.
Mm-hmm.
And use of forces to the point where people went to the hospital. I never killed anyone, but people ended up going to the hospital to get some medical attention.
Mm-hmm.
And this incident that you're speaking about was an extra duty assignment that those two officers called me in, said, hey man, we need you up here because man, we got these gangs from this town, that town, they all gonna be in one spot, and man, we need people up here that can handle business. I said, man, something told me not to go, I promise. But I said, I was like, these my boys. We on a SWAT team together. I said, you know what? I'm gonna go. And I went, and the night was cool. Until like 20 minutes left in the party. Fight breaks out. Chairs flying, bottles busting. I mean, it was madness in there. And we did our best to break it up. But then there were people that were drunk and they wanted to swing on us and attack us. And then there was one guy that I had to take care of, and then his brother, which was a really big, heavy-set guy, was the other one that was interfering with the arrest. And then when I tried to arrest him, in the streets, you get this kind of like premonition where when people, it's like, when people look off and then punch you, it's like one of those kind of premonitions that I got that he was like finagling or trying to create. And so I tried to get him before he got me. And then we got into a tussle, and he ended up getting arrested for resist, obstruct, delay because he was delaying our ability to arrest his brother. And it was just pandemonium. That wasn't an issue. That situation wasn't an issue. It brought attention, but it wasn't the issue. But the issue was when the SBI and FBI came in, several of the officers on the force mentioned to the SBI and the FBI, hey, you might want to look at these other use of forces he got involved in earlier in the summertime too. They weren't even there for that. But because so many of these other officers kept saying stuff, it created now an investigation into all these other use of forces that I ever been involved in my entire career. Gotcha. Now, the other thing was, from a political standpoint, I don't know, and I don't care either, but I was on the cusp of becoming sergeant. I was getting ready to get promoted, or my time was coming for promotion. And I believe that it was the effort of those who did not want to be supervised by somebody like me that they threw me under the bus in that way. Gotcha. And so after about, I was on administrative leave from August of 2009 until March of 2010. That's when I decided to resign. They offered me a severance package and I left. And I was still under investigation. So my theory was, well, if I leave, well, surely they'll throw this thing out, or they'll, it'll be no big deal. Nah, after 2 years, 2012, I was unemployable. I couldn't find a job in law enforcement. And I couldn't find a job at like Food Line or some local supermarket or a gas station even. I was right there. Nobody would hire me. So I was overqualified for those jobs, and I was under investigation for the law enforcement gig. So no agency would hire me at this time. And so you talk about depression. Oh man, you talk about feeling low. And my last two boys, they were born, and so I was a stay-at-home dad for those 2 years, which was because I definitely developed a strong appreciation for womanhood in that time period, man, changing diapers and feeding them and whatnot while my wife went back to work. In 2012, around Christmas time, I get a knock at the door. It's the federal agent and the state agent who were investigating my case, and they had the indictment papers, and they brought 2 indictments against me for using excessive force while under the color of law for 2 incidents that were unrelated to the club incident.
Okay.
And then around that time also is when all the lawsuits came. All the lawsuits came at one time. It's like, oh, this guy's got caught for using excessive force again. So then people started coming forward. Yeah, he did me too. He used it on me too. Yeah, me too. And then everybody lined up, and then they did all the use of forces roughly around the same time.
Yeah, his story is amazing, and I cut it off right before he goes on and explains how the trial goes on, his experiences as he gets walked out or out of the apartment and walked into the courthouse and things like that. Make sure you check him out. All right, make sure you check his book out. Most of the interviewees that I have on here have written their own books, or they're on Audible. And I highlight them. I proudly highlight them because it's not an easy feat to do this job. It's not easy to write a book. It's not easy to share those experiences. So I help put those, give them the platform to get their information out there and give them their experiences the respect that it's due. Moving on to LAPD. Got John Poltz. He wrote his own book, Negotiating Like Lives Are on the Line. I read his book as well, and he discussed some of his encounters with mental illness. And not only does he discuss mental illness, he talks about patrol. And he also did his research. He found a story about me from the past. So I'm going to let his clip play now.
Huge homeless problem. And a lot of them are suffering from really bad mental illness, and they're self-medicating with things like fentanyl and methamphetamine. And unfortunately, there's just so many people, and they're not getting the help they need fast enough. And what they do is, they end up turning to criminal acts. And when they turn to criminal acts, unfortunately, the police is who deal with them. And our law enforcement officers today, I don't believe, are fully prepared to deal with mental illness at the rate that they do. One of the things I always like to tell people is law enforcement's a little bit backwards as far as a profession, on the fact that when we bring our newest people in, we put them in patrol, right? And patrol, in my opinion, is the hardest job, because you never know what you're going to run into. You never know when it's going to happen. And oftentimes we have the youngest people doing that. We try to pair them up with some mentorship and some experienced individuals, but that only lasts for a short amount of time. Then before you know it, like in the LAPD, we got like two 25-year-old kids like running out there together, and they're trying to solve the world's problems. And they don't have the life experience, they don't have the training, they don't have the background. I mean, they're trained as best as they can be, but there's something to be said for time, experience, and getting the outside training you need. And a lot of times these guys are doing the best they can with the training they have, and it doesn't always go as smooth as it can, right? On the incident you're talking about with Ruby, that was her name. Myself and my partner, Officer Ralph, we ended up helping her out. And I mentioned at the end of the chapter that it was fortunate that the two of us were able to respond to that call when we did, because we did have experience. We've dealt with multiple mental illness type individuals, and we were calm, we were patient, and able to work through the problem without hurting her. And it reminds me of a situation you were involved in, right? There's a great news story about a car accident you came upon about a young teenager by the name of Dana and his mother. And for listeners who may not be aware, autism can really cause emotional outbursts in people who suffer, with the illness. And once they're taken out of their regular routine, sometimes they can react, and they can react violently. And looking at the news footage, there are three things that stood out to me, Clee. Was one, the right officer arrived on that scene at the right time, which was yourself. Two, Dana was a teenager, almost a grown man at the time, and unexperienced officers who pulled up on the scene might have seen someone that looked like a young grown man to them who's in a state of emotional shock. Right. And they may not know how to deal with that. He may be lashing out violently, he may be yelling, he may be screaming. And if for our listeners who don't know, you dealt with that situation, you calmed Dana down, you got everyone through it with no incident. And the mom actually, made a big deal of it, went to the news media, went to your department, talked about how great you handled that situation. But the biggest thing that stands out to me is when they interview you, you said you reflected back to a training class you had in the academy, right? And I think we were talking, it might have been as long as, a decade or more previously, right? And that's a long time. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying, at that time, it was about a decade prior back then, yes.
Right, and that's a long time to go without that sort of training, or at least an update with the stuff that's happening right now, because mental illness is huge. You look at the pandemic, now we're going into financial crisis, the regular stressors of the world with crime going up. There's a lot on people's plate, and they are going to react in sometimes violent ways when they mentally break down. And we have to be able to recognize it and stay patient and listen to what they're telling us.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, I did not pay him to tell that story. In fact, he caught me off guard with that story, because I did not even know that he knew. I didn't know it was still floating out there, to be honest with you. But yes, it's a true story. Yep. And thank you. And yep. And that's the interview with John Pulse. And make sure you guys check his book out. It's very entertaining and exciting and educational, like I say about everyone. But we're going to pause for the calls because Sergeant Be Safe is going to come to the stage. Stand by.
Your Honor, we have undeniable evidence that Chance Wilder attempted to hack into multiple bank accounts and steal money. We request the maximum penalty.
That's right, Your Honor. Chance Wilder is a menace to society, and we must put an end to his hacking shenanigans.
Objection, Your Honor. My client is innocent until proven guilty. We believe there's been a misunderstanding. Chance Wilder is a misunderstood genius, not a criminal.
Order in the court. Let's hear the defense's case.
Your Honor, I present to you Chance Wilder's latest creation, the Hacker Helper 3000. This incredible software was designed to protect innocent people from cyber threats. Chance's intentions were pure.
Objection, Your Honor. This is just a ploy to distract us from the real issues at hand.
Indeed, Your Honor. We even have evidence of Chance Wilder's hacking attempts. He's gone so far to have left a digital signature saying, "Catch me if you can."
Chance Wilder, I've heard both sides of the story. Hacking is illegal. Since you like to take wild chances, I sentence you to community service, where you use your skills for good, helping organizations protect themselves from cyber threats.
Oh man, no money and community service?
Shut up and take the deal.
Well, there's another good job done by our district attorney, just in case.
It was a team effort.
And there you go, folks. Justice was brought to Chance Wilder, but I'm pretty sure he'll be up to his shenanigans again. So tune in, and that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And we're back. I hope you guys enjoyed that brief commercial with Sergeant Be Safe. You know he likes to get that information out there. Look out for the children's book coming. I can't tell you when soon, but Sergeant Be Safe children's book, it will be coming down the pipeline. Now, these next set of guests, these were very interesting. These were very powerfully dynamic. Not that the others weren't, but this is when Black and Blue made another pivot and transition. And then instead of me reaching out, individuals started reaching out to me, sending me copies of their books or telling me their stories. This next story is we didn't even have enough time to finish everything. I know he's been on many podcasts explaining his story, and he's been in and out of jail, explaining his story on corruption. He talks about how he was set up, how he always wanted to do the right thing, how he always spoke up about the right thing. And I'm going to bring Raymond Hicks, and he wrote his book, I'm Still Standing. So make sure you guys check that out. That story is dynamic and it's powerful, but here's his clip.
To be honest with you, one of the court-appointed attorney enticed me. He said, man, on the manuscript, write down everything that happened because this could possibly be a bestseller book, maybe a movie, you know, and wow. he took me back to court and got off my case. So I took his advice and I just began to just start writing some things down. And that's what formulated the title of the book, I'm Still Standing by Raymond Hicks.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about how all things got started? I know, I don't want to give too much away. It's your story, and plus I'll probably chop it up. But how did you start being investigated on?
Well, first of all, you know, I started working out in the jail. You know, I was a highly decorated officer. I was a Gold Cross recipient, Silver Cross recipient, 2-time Deputy of the Month. And a lot of my friends that I grew up with here in Fort Lauderdale, you know, they used to come in and out the system. So one of the guys, his name is Gaston Akins. We call him G Fresh. You know, he had a shootout with the former sheriff, Scott Israel, when Scott was just a regular patrolman for the city of Fort Lauderdale. And I said, gee, what are you doing, man? I said, every time you turn around, man, you constantly in and out the system. What about your wife and kids, man? You know, I said, the recidivism rate is continuously growing by a vast number. You know, you got to change your life around, man. And make a long story short, he was one of the ones that I've inspired. And you're going to learn later that he actually became my boss. But anyway, I began to speak out against corruption within my department, where they was planting drugs and beating young black offenders to the ground and taking money from them. They also had a pyramid scheme where there was 200 some employees and involved in this pyramid scheme, where each person would bring $1,000 to the pot, which is punishable up on the, I forget what statute it was, but it's punishable up under 5 years in, let's say, prison and a $5,000 fine. A lot of men and women out of Miami was actually arrested for the same thing that some of these people at the Broward Sheriff Office were doing. And when I began to speak out against everything that I saw, they came after me, especially when I was working with Drug Task Force, OCD, and the Cradle. Within 1,000 feet of the school, 3 years in state penitentiary. And that's where my dilemma began. But I should have just stayed in the jail. I actually, let me just back up for a second. When I left the jail, they started pulling me out of the jail in 1990, and they had a sting operation. So they used a lot of us from detention to go out and pose as undercover sellers. If you was from the street like I am, and you knew the street lingo, like we go to different areas and we're like, hey, my nigga, I got them parlays. What's happening, man? And of course we making different transactions with these individuals and whatnot. And we also had like informants, where we were sending informant to certain particular locations. Yep. And that informant was a paid informant. And on the drugs that we were giving them, on the Ziploc package, it had a serial number and the money was marked. So we were sending an informant into the location. That person would go in and make the transaction and come back and give us the intel about who, either he or she that they made contact with. And we would move in and put these people into custody. So when the commander would give us the rocks to sell, I watched some of my colleagues, again, plant drugs, take money, beat young black offenders to the ground. And I just told them that it was morally wrong and totally unethical, and I was not going to indulge in that practice. And I said, listen, they was keeping the money, Mr. Tillman. I'm saying to myself, at the end of the night, everything has to be tallied up. All the drugs and the money has to go in a manila folder with the red tape says evidence. But these people was keeping the money. And I said, you guys are no different than the people that we just arrested. Yeah. And they told me, you need to mind your own business. I said, what do you mean mind my business? So to be honest with you, I would have never thought in a million years, man, that I would go through what I'm about to explain to you tonight, sir, in reference to what my department subjected to me and my family to. And of course, I just spoke out against the things that I saw that was wrong. They say when you see something, you say something. According to the policy, I don't have it in front of me right now, but the policy says that if you see something going on, within the department that's not right, you need to bring it to your sergeant's attention. Right. And that's what I did. I brought it to the sergeant's attention, the lieutenant, and up to the captain. But these people told me to mind my business. Next thing you know, they searched my car without probable cause or a search warrant, realizing that I must have been selling drugs. And when my brother called me, he said, man, y'all know who this is. This is my brother car. He worked for the sheriff department. So I went to the location where he was. I called communication, and I asked him to have the sergeant fit this at my 1020 to meet me at my location. And the sergeant never showed up. So I called the lieutenant and told him about it. And next thing you know, he says, wait, when you get a chance, go to Internal Affairs and file a complaint, which is what I did. And next thing you know, all hell broke out, man, But
Yeah, that was a very intense story, and it goes on. And I suggest you guys learn about him, learn about his struggle, learn about the incidents that he went through. He went through a huge ordeal for a long, long time, and I still think he's going through the residual of it. He's been on many different platforms. He's been on many different podcasts as well, explaining his story, and his fight still goes on. So interesting to follow up with him and seeing what's current with him and seeing if things are moving forward for the positive or negative. So we'll hopefully be back in contact with Mr. Raymond Hicks. We're going to move forward to he was in Florida, by the way. We're moving on back to Arizona with Matthew Thomas. Read his book as well. He has done wonderful things, fighting the cartels and how things were done during his time when he was in the war on drugs, for lack of a better term. But he comes to the stage actually, and he's going to talk about his burning desire on how he was brought up in a way where he actually didn't think he was going to be a police officer. He actually saw police officers in his neighborhood and interacted with them. And he talks about how touches on marriages, how most marriages don't survive an entire career here as a first responder in law enforcement. But his is standing the test of time, and kudos to him. Here's his story.
So I had a little bit of a different experience, right? So I grew up in a pretty rough area, and I was exposed to law enforcement early on, and not in a positive way. They came into our neighborhood, primarily the gang cops would roll into our neighborhood, and that's the exposure I had to cops. But the gang cops were really cool, man. Like they would come in, and we kind of knew our rules, we knew their rules, and we just dealt with each other. But they were always cool. They would just come up, talk to us, just kind of BS with us, sometimes even just hang out with us. So that was my exposure to law enforcement. And then as I got into my teens, I was always drawn to like military stuff, right? And then having a grandfather that was a World War II vet, really drawn to military or some type of service. And as I got into my late teens in high school and stuff, I felt a definite desire to serve. And so I thought the military was going to be my route. But then as I got out of high school at a very young age, my now wife, who was my then girlfriend, were both 19 years old, and I find myself on the verge of having a child because she was pregnant, and we had to figure it out, right? And so, quite honestly, one of the things that was motivating me was that I was about to have a kid. I had to get something stable, something steady, something that would pay the bills, something that would have the insurance. And so it was military or this, and at 20 years old, I got my first call to come to work here at Pinal County, and kind of been here since, man.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that story. You know, I mean, having a baby at a young age does put a fire under you, so it gets you to move. I know that I was in the military. I had my oldest son. I had when I was 21. So I mean, when I was in, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And then when the call came saying, yeah, I'm pregnant and we're gonna move forward, I'm like, yeah, time to make that move.
Yeah, my mom told me, when I told my mom at 19 years old, Mom, my girlfriend's pregnant and we're going to have a baby. She said, well, there's two choices, and I'm hoping you're going to make the right one. One is to run away from that situation, and one is to dig your heels in and just take it on. And, I was never a runaway kind of guy. So we went at it, and I'll tell you what, I've been super lucky. Anybody that's in this career a long time knows that a wife that starts a career with you isn't always a wife that finishes a career with you. And I've been blessed to have a wife that is just a warrior, and she's put up with a lot of crap for me over the years and has blessed me by staying with me this long.
And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, that's, at least from my experience and the things I've seen, that's very rare. So to find that coming in the rough like that, a gem like that is something special. So I know the two are a hot commodity, and things are going. You guys are going to make it all true and true. Happy to hear. Yes, absolutely. Kudos to him. And moving on to emotional intelligence with Randy Moody in Aurora, Colorado. It was a lot of fun to interview. He came on with a different and dynamic perspective. Here's his story now. Or you're just, through the court of public opinion, you're just demonized.
Yeah, absolutely. And, back during Ferguson, it was the concern we were just going to be all over YouTube. And now with these reform bills, we're seeing more and more officers indicted. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty that need to be if they're acting inappropriate, but there are plenty out there trying to do the right thing and trying to do their job and make a mistake. Human performance factors, right? I think we do a poor job in this country of helping society in America understand human performance and dynamics. Our society is very forgiving of pro athletes trying to perform and making mistakes. And I see this example used, this metaphor that you go out there and pro athletes, obviously those aren't life and death situations, but officers are going out, and everybody thinks officers are trained to this magnificent expertise level. They're not. You need more hours of training as a hairstylist in the state of Colorado than you do to be law enforcement.
Wow.
And even though we train more than the state requires, that's kind of mind blowing. That's what priorities are. So I've said IACP and PERF, I think, and challenge those organizations to do more to get out there and let the world know what these physiological responses, these human performance errors that occur. And if we don't get in front of that, we're going to see more and more of officers being indicted for making failures when they're trying to do the right thing.
Right. And I'm going to jump right in.
When I started doing emotional intelligence and you start hearing about that from law enforcement, it's kind of the new catchphrase, but I think it's so crucial. I think for some cops, it's, I'm not going to talk about my emotions. It's the same thing with wellness, right? I just rub some dirt on it and move on. It's not really about that at all. Your emotions manifest themselves in physiological responses to your body, neuromuscular, cardiovascular, the chemicals that are released, and all of these kinds of things can do damage to your body. So I think it's important from a wellness standpoint that we teach emotional intelligence. We've all seen the studies. Law enforcement officers, we die at younger ages, heart disease higher, suicides through the roof, and we need to give our folks the skills to be able to navigate that stuff. So the definition, and I talked a little bit about Talent Smart and their book Emotional Intelligence 2.0. That research is based on Daniel Goleman. So I was introduced to Daniel Goleman a few years ago. I kind of considered the godfather of emotional intelligence. Came out, I think, in 1995 and created discussed the 4 core emotional intelligence skills across 2 competences. So you have the personal competence that is the self-awareness, and then the self-management of that, and then the social competence of social awareness and relationship management. And then what you'll find in that book is the definition. I'm going to read it right here because I don't want to mess it up. Your ability to recognize and understand emotions, and your skill at using this awareness to manage yourself and your relationships with others.
And there it is. Yep. Randall Moody. His interview was great. I had a lot of fun. He talks about emotional intelligence in the books that he highlighted there. And, if you see it, starting to see a pattern, I tried to hit up north, east, southwest, midwest, different areas of the country here with law enforcement and first responder. And so last but definitely not least, one of our latest videos, we're going to Seattle, Washington, with Police Chief Daryl Lowe. And he talks about his police department, of course, and recruitment, and how his police department's hiring and the difficulties it is for looking to get into law enforcement. It's a challenge. Make sure if you're trying to get your foot wet in law enforcement, for lack of a better term, but if you're trying to get into this field, make sure you research the department that you're trying to get into, because not every person is fit for each department. And he explains that. Here's his clip.
Ratio, and that's happened very organically. For those in the business of tracking, there is the 30 for 30 initiative, and we are, approaching that number, like I said, fairly organically. We do have females both in our executive command ranks. We have supervisors, but we are a medium-sized department. I'm authorized 88 commissioned police officers. I currently have 79 officers, and I've run about that same 10% vacancy rate for the time that I've been here. But through some very deliberative recruitment efforts on our part, we've actually hired 21 people year to date between commissioned officers and support staff. But my attrition rate every year is 6 to 7 people. So even though I've hired a sufficient number, I still lost 6 individuals. And it's an ebb and ebb and flow type of process. And then the other part is just having a department that is desirable for people to come to, because they are supported. We have tremendous community support. And then our demographics from a city perspective is not your typical white, black, Hispanic. We have a lot of Southeast Asian population, a lot of Indian population, and so our diversity would be different than others to truly reflect our community. And the challenge from a recruitment perspective there is for some of these other cultures, law enforcement is not a desired profession. And again, we are in the tech area, both between like I said, the tech companies that exist, but we also have a tremendous space industry here. So we have a lot of very highly technical, highly specialized employment. And those are the jobs that some of the cultures and demographics that we have here in Redmond, they tend to gravitate towards, and that is more valued in their culture. So you're fighting against something that's hardwired, deeply embedded, cultural, and money and those types of things, especially from the public sector, cannot compete against that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting. I did not know that. I'm being here on East Coast itself, not knowing it's heavy on the tech, heavy in space culture. So that itself would be difficult because you have a different genre of folks that are in that area for work purposes, living in that area. So it would be difficult to recruit when people are living in that area or moving to that area specifically for something totally different than actually being a first responder.
Right. And we also, have to, acknowledge or recognize too that the individuals that come here, from other countries, law enforcement is viewed very differently, and it's even, I don't say constructed differently, but it's operated differently because a lot of times it's an offshoot of the military, or offshoot of the government, and then there may be issues of human rights or corruption or different things. So those variables also factor into, I'll say making inroads, into those communities.
Gotcha. Yep. Good points. All good points, ladies and gentlemen. And there you have it, folks, right there. It's, recap. Going through the process, the pivots, the changes through Black and Blue. You see the background differences. You see the different guests from all over the nation. You had a few outside the country as well. Didn't get a chance to highlight them. I can't highlight everybody in one clip, but there will be other future highlights coming. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, like I said, we will be interviewing Ernie Stevens this upcoming week. We had to fill this gap in with this. I've been wanting to do something like this for a while. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys still remember the interview, the great people that we've had on the show. You guys check them out, see how they're flourishing now since their interview, since the show. Black and Blue airs weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, we're going to continue to do so. We air and we interview law enforcement and first responders, whether they're rookies, seasoned, or retirees, and we discuss their trainings, their experiences, and their publications. And we don't fail to do so. We bring all that information to the forefront. I enjoy bringing this information to the forefront. We got a doubleheader next week. Like I said, we go visit and meet Michael Laidler, and we're going to interview him as well. So we got many things coming down the pipeline. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm your host, Coach Klee, your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, your favorite baker's favorite baker, saying 10-4, over and out.
Ooh, look at all the pretty butterflies in the sky. I guess I'll just cross the street here.
Oh, good. Light's green. I'm glad I can go. Oh my gosh, watch out.
Sergeant, be safe, be small, baby. Megan, watch out for that car. I got you.
Oh, geez. I didn't even see that car coming.
Oh my gosh, are you two okay?
Yes, we're okay. Megan, you have to do a better job paying attention.
I just wanted to cross the street.
I didn't see you walking there.
Megan, you just can't cross in the middle of the street. You have to go to the intersections and use the proper crosswalks. Wait for traffic to clear and then go. If you don't follow these simple directions, you could get a ticket for jaywalking, or worse, be hit by a car and seriously injured.
I'll be more careful from now on. Ooh, look at the other butterfly.
Oh my goodness.
Sergeant Be Safe, you are the best.
This is very true. Thank you very much. I did have to turn on supersonic beast mode to jump and get Megan out of the way. Remember, folks, look both ways before crossing the street and wait till the intersection's clear and cross at the crosswalks. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.